You're listening to Dear Creator. Welcome back. This is solo entry number 4. Better late than never. I am recording this mid-May, but I wanted to continue this consistency, even though it didn't come out, right after April. We are in mid-May, but I wanted to continue this. I don't want to just skip. So that's why I'm here reflecting on the month of April. And if you're new to Dear Creator, solo entries are where I share a recap of what I learned or experienced this last month. I include reflections that I hope provide value or inspiration and perspective for you, especially if you're a creative entrepreneur, multi-hyphenate, founder, or creator who's building a business or spacious and creative life. Though if you have a quick sec, make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening. When you rate the podcast, it helps others find these conversations who may really need to hear them, and it helps us out. And I'm really actually excited to share more about just the goals that I have for Dear Creator. This podcast has been going on for almost 2 years probably at this point. I shared on my Instagram stories of Dear Creator Pod at Dear Creator Pod on Instagram, just the evolution of how Dear Creator started. So maybe we'll get into that as we go. But what's interesting is I actually have my grocery list and my notes for the solo entry, but it's not really written out thoroughly. And it'll be interesting to talk about these different points without more context prepared. Something that I talked to Sierra about, who was on Dear Creator, is human design, and something that I learned about myself in the last few months. I've learned a lot about myself in the last few months is that I'm an open throat, and I do best when I don't overly script things, overscript what I want to say. I just say it as I say it. But I think it can also be interesting to talk about how it could be because of astrology. And I talked to somebody in my Instagram DMs who said that my astrology could indicate my silly goose, yapper, mad genius vibes, and I kind of love that. And that kind of gave me some validation on just how I operate, how I communicate, how I like to be, and like who I am, I guess. And I think you can learn so much from human design and astrology. And I think also I was talking to a friend about this. We went wine tasting and we were just talking about how it kind of tells you or shows you what you already know about yourself, but it just validates how you can be authentically you. And it kind of takes like the mask, it helps you take the mask off, because I think, at least for me, I have this hate relationship with my personality sometimes, where I'm like wanting to control how other people perceive me. And that's just, you can't control how others perceive you, unfortunately. And I think that's where the mask comes on sometimes, because you want to try to control. But anyways, April was the month that started to get really busy for me. A lot more like social activities. And I will start off with how I was watching my parents' dog and cat while they were out of town. And it was a nice staycation. I mean, they only live like 10 minutes away. And it was nice because I had the house to myself. I had like a kitchen to cook in that just was like nice and spacious, and I was able to be outside. And it's not that I can't do those things in my current environment, but my living condition or situation right now is not ideal for that. So that was just like really freeing. I felt like it was a good reset. And one of the things that I really noticed about being at their house is just the natural light that they have. If you're watching this on YouTube, I am in like a basement studio apartment type styled living space, and we don't have the best lighting. And I think I always like want lighting because I feel like, oh, like my content's going to be so much better. And we hear all of the advice on social media about having good lighting for content and stuff like that. And the thing is, I don't let my living situation be my excuse to not create content because I want to create content. I think if I didn't create content, I'd feel like this constant itch to create it, though I almost have to like realize that my content doesn't have to look like everybody else's content for people to hear the message that I want to share. And it was just an interesting experience because I felt so much more alive and inspired and wanting to create content at my parents' house because the lighting was so much better. So that was just super interesting. And I also didn't feel like I was performing for the content because me and my partner, we share the same space. It's a small space. It's not like I can close the door and create content and I'm not like, oh, is he listening to me or something? But I felt like I had the freedom of creative expression at my parents' house. And I was just able to turn on my camera when I thought of an idea that I wanted to share for my Instagram stories, or I filmed an Instagram reel and things like that. And I just like didn't have this like inkling that somebody's like listening to me and it has to be perfect and blah blah blah. I was just me, and I wonder if that has to do with my human design or if that has to do with just like my way of working, because I'm also the type of person who likes to kind of just like be in it, like tunnel vision, don't bother me. I get distracted easily. But I also hear a lot of these excuses, right? Of like not creating content because of your environment or because of your lighting. And I think it's understandable for sure, especially if you're building a brand or a business and you want it to be perceived in a certain way. In certain aspects, we can control how people perceive our brands or our businesses, but then I think we also put so much pressure on ourselves to create in an authentic way in that sense. Like it almost means like we have to put more effort into creating content when your space isn't the way that you want it to. So you almost have to choose. And something that came up in April that I realized was there's a lot of social media advice on how to create content and like how it's so easy. But when you look at who is sharing that advice, their life does not equal yours, their space, the lighting, their financial resources aren't the same. And of course, it's easy for them to create content. They've curated their entire home to be, quote, on brand. But when you try to do it for yourself, it might not feel that easy. So there's this constant push and pull between wanting to create content to market your services, build brand awareness, create a community online, be a leader or a thought leader, expert, whatever you want to be, but it's not going to turn out the way that you want it to turn out because you might not have the environment, you might not have the interior design or aesthetic that you want, and you're not about to go drop thousands of dollars on a brand colored couch from West Elm or something. So it was just like a really interesting experience to be in a place like my parents when there was no one else there. The lighting was great. I mean, is their interior my quote aesthetic or my style? No, but they have a lot of spaciousness in their home to have a blank wall or to be against a different texture or whatever. And it just made me think a lot about how sometimes the content advice online feels a bit gaslighty. Like this constant idea of how, oh, content is so easy, but then you care so much about your identity, your business perception, and how you want it to be, yeah, perceived by others. It's not that easy. So I think from that experience, I just wanted to validate if you feel that constant battle, like either all the time or occasionally when you're just like, oh, I just want my content to feel and look good how I want to. Like I get it. Like it's not that easy. You actually have to put effort into it. Whether that's saving up for certain things to curate your home to look a certain way, or to rent a studio and film content there, or even just like putting it on your calendar to go out of your way and create the content in different environments that actually are quote on brand or in places that feel good. And even just a quick segue from that, I was talking to a friend about this experience. And she was saying, which was like really interesting and validating as well, is that I might just be the type of person who, like I said, like I work alone. Well, I like to work with other people, but when I'm like in a deep focus session, I cannot have distractions. I get sidetracked so easily, nothing gets done. And so it's almost like I'm in my own bubble for a short period of time. But she was just saying, like, maybe there are just like different environments or places that you can be in that is comfortable for you to create the content so you can feel like you are yourself and not performing. And like the whole performance thing, I think in some ways we are performing when we create content because we are trying to entertain or educate or share perspective and story tell and all of those things. Like, I think in some ways it actually does make sense. But when you look back at the videos that you are creating and it doesn't feel like you, or you're like, who is that person? That can really create like a weird mental tug of war. It's like, who is that? It's like, that's not me. That's not how I talk. And I've really had to learn like how I talk. Like, how do I really talk? And it's now like my brain is doing spirals just thinking about it. It's like, am I talking how I would talk to a friend right now? But again, like, I think I'm going in circles now, just even thinking about this, because in some ways performance is good, but maybe it's not when you are trying to figure things out. So I'm curious on your thoughts on that. And if you can relate to anything that I just said, this episode might not be very organized, or I don't know. I'm just like, messy thoughts. Here we go. I hope it's entertaining or valuable in some sort of way. Another thing in April that I was really talking a lot about with people in my community and my partner is the identity versus skills, and how a lot of the times, and I'm curious if you feel this way as a creative person, our identity and our skills sometimes get intertwined, and we put so much of our self worth tied to our skills. And we almost use our skills as our identity when they're just like parts of us, they're not who we are. And I had to really think about what this meant for me, because I think just looking back at all of the pivots that I've done, all of the mess, like just being in the messy middle, being in a constant evolution as we all are, I think in the past I've pivoted multiple times because I was tying my skills to my self worth. So I would always see, oh, I'm a designer, I'm a photographer, I'm a consultant, I'm a content marketer, all of the different hats that I would wear. I used those roles as my identity, and I lost what or who I was essentially through it all. When in reality, it's I can design a website. I can consult with you on your business. Those are all skills. They're not who we are. But then it makes me think about how sometimes creatives, they are their work in a sense, but their work does not define their self-worth. So that's something that I was thinking a lot about in April. And it actually influenced me to remove my role or title from my Instagram bio. And strategically in business, that could probably be a bad idea because it's like, how are people going to find you if they search for business mentor, creator, or photographer, whoever? But it's like, I am more than just what I can do, I am more than who people know me as, besides like Morgan Markowski. And it actually came into conversation as well with my partner, where I was telling him about how my skills are what create cash flow to build my legacy and my body of work. I would try to separate all of these different things that I was doing when in reality, I am now leveraging the skills that I have to have consistent income. And it's not that I don't want to do them, but I don't want to work super hard in that way. For instance, my identity and my self worth were so tied to doing graphic design, brand identities, website design, photography, to the point where, like, if I didn't sell or book a client for those skills that I had, it would tear me apart. And I think part of that caused burnout. Maybe a good portion of it, actually. But then what's so interesting is I go and work at a software company, or I do brand and website design on the side for a client of mine without the pressure of trying to sell these services. And it's so easy for me to do it. It's fun. It's helping me make consistent income. And so I think there's something in that. Now, when I talk about legacy or body of work, this is also something that I'm starting to try to like process and articulate myself. I see what I do to help creatives as part of my body of work. And when I say legacy, I imagine, this is what I leave behind when I'm not on this earth anymore. My friend that I talked to, she's like, this is what people continue to talk about when you're not in the room anymore. I think of all the artists who've left their paintings and sculptures and music behind for us to consume and appreciate or criticize when they're no longer here. And that's kind of what this body of work is for. And that's really a creative journey, personal journey as well. And I don't know, I think there are people who start businesses and brands to have freedom and flexibility and not work for other people. They want to have more control or autonomy. They don't want to cap their income. They don't want to climb the corporate ladder. And yes, I want all of that as well, but there's like a deeper fire inside of me to build something or help people in a more impactful way. And I think that's like what I'm working towards. But while I do that, I also need to survive in this horrid economy. And I think what's really cool as creatives is that we have so many skills that people need us for. And we can really leverage those skills to make money that then fuels everything else that we want to create or build or indulge in and things like that. So, yeah, oh my gosh. These are the conversations that I want to sit down with like a glass of wine with you and have. And I'm actually looking for more guests for Dear Creator to record in June. So if you're interested, reach out, DM me on Instagram or comment below. I'd love to have you on. Something that I also wanted to mention with all of this, I feel like this episode kind of has a theme, at least like the last few points that I was making. I don't want to be a multi-hyphenate creative forever. Like I said, I think the creative skills that we have are great because it helps us establish a concrete, solid foundation for the lives that we want to live and build and grow. And the other day, towards the end of April, I was just like, dang, I do a lot. I do a lot. I do so much. I do content marketing. I do consulting. I do mentorship. I do graphic design and photography. I do a lot of different things. It's not typically all at once. There are some things that get switched around seasonally. And I'm very glad that I've spotted my own patterns on how I operate so I can build the systems to support me and stay organized. Though I don't want to do all of this forever in this way. And I think that's kind of where like I'm seeing like the bigger picture, the bigger vision of just like my ideal day would like be sitting or laying actually in a hammock with a glass of wine or coffee, depending on the day, just like writing ideas, things I've learned, documenting, taking photos, just being in nature. Like, that's what I want to do. I don't want to be in the hustle and bustle. I feel like sometimes when I'm driving, I am on like autopilot and I don't want to live my life that way. I think that's why so many, maybe not the only reason, but maybe one of the reasons why people are like, your life flashes before your eyes. Maybe because they work so fucking much and they're just like, they conform to society. And I don't know if you can relate, but I just could never want that. I don't know. I've always felt like a little bit of an outcast in some ways. Like when my friends were deciding to go to college, I feel like I just decided to go to college just to go, even though I knew I didn't want to work for anybody else but myself, or like I didn't want to climb the corporate ladder. So that's interesting. Maybe I'm just verbally processing out loud, but there are so many different things that you can do so you're not on autopilot anymore, right? Like I've talked about before in other pieces of content that I've created of just how you can schedule something in the middle of the week just to break up your week, whether that's a yoga class, a coffee date, a nap. I'm not a napper, but I think I'm going to nap after this. I don't know, like am I making sense? Something that I've been thinking about recently is creating fake friendships on social media is not a sales strategy. I've been in business for like 5-ish years and I have always just really wanted to build community and I'm learning as I go, but it just seems like a lot of people online who hide behind their phones are being nicey and love bombing to try to get a sale out of you. And then when you decline working with them, they disappear, which is not how I vibe at all or function. But let's talk about the future of Dear Creator because I feel like I'm starting to lose focus, my low energy girly. Yeah, so I think a couple weeks ago I shared on my Instagram stories that I'm looking for guests for Dear Creator. And I really have like this bigger vision for Dear Creator. I think one day it could potentially be a publication. I think one day it could host events virtually and locally or in real life somewhere. I think we could really build a tight-knit community and learn from each other, share stories, share experiences, help each other out, network. That's kind of like the vision. There's no like clear path to it yet. But that's like the goal. That's like the goal. I would love to do that. And I think people are looking to join some sort of community. People are feeling lonelier every day. Social media is a distraction from real human connection. And I think Dear Creator could be that like fun place for people to hang out. And so we're kind of in this messy middle because that's the big vision. So how do we get there? If you have an answer, please let me know, because we're evolving, but we are taking baby steps every step of the way. And so I think what could be cool is to have some sort of community hub, which could be the Instagram. I followed everybody back on Instagram who's followed Dear Creator. I would want to have more guests on. And I think just trying to shift the conversations to actual conversations, not just like interview style. And I have some like fun ideas for these conversations, but it's in the works. But something about me and something that I really, really stand with is not letting your ideas just simmer. I'm all about taking an idea and making it real in some way, even if it's small, even if it's just writing it down to start, even if it's just having a conversation about it with somebody. And yeah, that's kind of like where it's headed. That might sound not very solid, but that's like literally the point, is that it isn't solid yet, but it is a vision that I have. And I would love for you to join me on this vision, on this big picture plan. So a few reflections that I have in my red notebook here is, I'll just read them. This year in general feels powerful and energizing for me personally. I feel like I'm coming back to the root of my creativity, like who I am. I feel like I evolve pretty quickly. Like I'm always looking at the next step, and the weather's getting nicer. It's grounding. It has been bringing more opportunity and inspiration. And opportunity and inspiration is primarily from conversations, I think, and being out in the real world, not being hidden behind a screen. And I'm really itching for that as well, is to just go out and frolic around, be creative, create, write. That's what I really have enjoyed recently, and I actually do write a lot. Man, if you saw my Instagram stories, oh my gosh, sometimes I'm like, this could be a damn book. Why am I writing so much in my Instagram stories? But I just have a lot to say. I'm a yapper. I'm a yapper girl, yapper vibes. So yeah, thank you for sitting here with me. It's just very chill, cozy vibes. That's the vibe. What's interesting is sometimes I feel like I am very yapper, high energy. Sometimes I'm just chill and monotone. And, that's just who I am. Hopefully, just these reflections or ideas or little mini rants and things that I've talked about today in this episode was valuable. In my previous solo entry 3, I talked about how I cured my burnout in less than 2 hours. I got 5 likes on that on YouTube, which was really exciting. But then I got 2 dislikes, and I was like, oh shit, like, did I say something to piss people off? But it's just practicing that mindset shift where you're like, actually, maybe they just didn't want to see that content, and that's why they disliked it. Or maybe I have haters, so who knows? But I was surprised because that video got a good amount of views out of like nowhere. And so yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to create on social media. And I'll leave it at that. If you want to have a conversation about anything that I talked about, feel free to DM me on Instagram. Thank you for watching or listening. I hope you were able to get some value or inspiration from this, and I'll see you in the next one.